Montana is a prime example of a Western American state. Cowboys in the Treasure State have been munching bison long before it became a health trend in the bodybuilding community, which is exactly why I chose it to be the feature ingredient in this episode. Well, I lied because there's actually two, but we'll get more on the... Let's baste some bison. We got a few different kinds of bison here today, different cuts of bison. First up, we got the ribeye here. This is a beautiful little decal you can see. Then we have a sirloin steak. Then, of course, we got our New York strip. Look how lean this is. Look at this color. It's basically like venison, but it's, you know, obviously bison. So yeah, I popped these in a wire rack, salted them, let them sit in the fridge overnight, so now they're dry and ready for us to baste. So let's get going on that. Bring a saute pan up on medium-high heat, let it get super hot. That is nice and hot. Then add in a dash of high heat cooking oil like grapeseed or avocado. Pat your protein dry, then just lay your steak in the pan like it's a sweet, sweet baby boy. Season once more with sodium chloride, then gently press the steak into the pan, ensuring that it stays flat for an even sear. After a few minutes, once a crust begins to form and the steak is browned to your liking, flip it. Now is the time to add in the butter and aromatics. I'm using thyme and a couple of garlic cloves. Basting is a hot and fast, as opposed to low and slow, technique that's perfect for cooking any tender cut of protein. So think steaks, chicken breast, or in our case, these bison cuts. Once the steak either feels medium rare or probes at around 125 Fahrenheit, transfer it to a wire rack and pour over that browned herb butter. Let it rest for at least 5 minutes before slicing. Alright, so now that you understand how to butter baste, simply rinse and repeat the process for the remaining bison steaks. Just a couple tips here. If you think your butter is going to burn, you can totally add a little bit of oil to keep it from burning. That's going to raise the smoke point of the butter. Or just simply reduce the heat a little bit so that your butter doesn't burn as fast. Now, you might be wondering, Adam, why in Poseidon's name are you using 17 Keurigs of butter for a single steak? Well, this technique is literally called butter basting, and in order to achieve optimal heat distribution from the fat flowing over the protein, we need a healthy, or I guess unhealthy, depending on who you ask, amount of butter. I had to pick up an actual big ribeye from a beef just to compare it to the bison, so we're just gonna cook this up the same way that we've been doing the rest. Jesus. Also, remember to tilt the pan towards you slightly so that the fat pools at the bottom. Larger, thicker cuts of steak are going to need more time to cook, therefore more basting will be required. It might take you a little practice to nail this the first few times, but I know you're going to do just fine. You got this. Alright, let's make some sauce. These are our second featured ingredient, the humble huckleberry. Kind of like an interesting blueberry, a little more tart, a little less sweet, but still plenty sweet. You have to forage these, right? You can't actually get them in the store. They're not cultivated. That's for a number of reasons, but they only grow at super high elevation. Now, I ordered these directly from a forager in Montana who goes up into the mountains and plucks these off the vines. Branch? I don't know. They're kind of tough to get, to be honest, but I will provide some information for you if you want to grab some of these yourself over on the website. Those are nice. To a small saucepan over medium heat, add the butter, then mince up some shallot and garlic. Add a little pinch of salt on top, then let that sweat out for about 2 to 3 minutes. Add in the stock. This can be beef or chicken. Then a nice, full-bodied, teeth-staining red wine of your choice. I picked up some vino from the Walla Walla Valley in neighboring Washington state. Then it's in with our huckleberries, fresh thyme, balsamic vinegar, the real stuff, not the dyed garbage, honey for a touch of sweetness, black pepper, kosher salt, and of course you already know, the God particle, aka MS Jizzle. Now increase the heat to high and reduce the sauce down for 10 to 15 minutes until it looks something like this. Alright, this is probably ready to go. Chunky. Pour the whole shadiddly into a blender and puree it until smooth. Now, here's a little chefy tip for you. I'm adding a tiny bump of xanthan gum, which is just gonna help smooth out our puree. It's totally optional, but xanthan gum is a cheap and useful ingredient that I truly think home cooks should have in their pantry. Strain the sauce through some fine mesh, then it's back into the saucepan. Well, that's sludge. You don't want that in your sauce. Adjust acid, salt, and sweetness if you need to, and boom, that's our Huck sauce. Ain't you pretty? Alright, by now our bison has rested, so we can slice it up. Remember to cut across the grain here. We want this beast to be nice and tendy. It's a thin ribeye. Oh, and I also went ahead and made some huckleberry compound butter off camera. Looks pretty pretty. It's super simple to make. If you want that recipe, it'll be posted exclusively over on the Patreon. However, you totally could just use some nice salted butter too. As if this wasn't buttery enough. Big ol' saucers of burr. And that is all this steak needs in my eyes. Just a nice, simple green salad and some frites, fries, whatever you want to call them. Let's start with the sirloin. Ooh yeah, get some of that Huck butter on there with the Huck sauce. She's dripping. The sweetness actually plays... The sweetness plays very, very well with that strong, one might say beefy on leaner cows. It's a similar vibe with bison, right? It's a strong flavor. And this is farmed bison. I can only imagine what wild bison tastes like. Yum. All right, let's go with the, what is this? This New York strippy. I want to put a little whole huckberry on there, you know? All right, Lost Town. Nice. Okay, that strong flavor I was talking about, a little toned back with the New York strip. Maybe it's just from where the cut comes from. Sirloins do tend to taste more like the animal from which they come. Definitely a little more mild. I really like the cook on this because it was sliced super thin and it was still pretty mid-rare. That's nice. All right, let's go for a nice fatty piece. I want to try some bison fat. Oh yeah. Okay, if I had to choose one, that would win right now. The fat is so important with such a lean animal like this. There's a lot of flavor in this meat, but the fat is where the majority of that flavor is, and just when it's kind of mixed together, it's just, you can't really beat it. Same thing with like beef too, I guess. Speaking of beef, I mean, that's a classic right there. Little ribeye. I'm gonna have the same, this looks like very similar to the same piece I just ate. That's boof butter, baby. We all know what this is. That's good stuff too. All in all, if I had to choose, the bison ribeye wins the bison off. It's comparable, but definitely not the same thing as beef too. If you've never tried this before, you should give it a go. You might like what you're eating. I hope that you dug this video and that it inspired you to cook some bison for yourself or try huckleberries. As usual, if you liked the video or are planning on making this recipe, give it a like. Sub to the channel if you're new here. If you're not new here, if you're an existing omnivore, what up? The best way to help us out is to go over to the Patreon and support there if you can. Fantastic. We're doing a lot of extra fun stuff. Got exclusive merch, live cooking demos, monthly giveaways, all that fun stuff. So if you could swing it, we'd really appreciate it and it would help the channel. If not, that's fine too. We'll see you very, very soon. The next state we're going to is Nebraska, and like usual, if you think you know what we're gonna make for it, comment it below. That's all I got for you this week, and until next time, bye.